Hi everyone, Sabrina here from Scrappy Tales Crafts, and today I'm going to be showing you 3 cards that I created with this Love You Bunches stamp set by Trinity Stamps. I'm going to start by inking up the stamp for all 3 of my cards. I placed the large floral image inside my MISTI, and that is because I will be stamping multiple times because I'm stamping on textured watercolor paper. So I thought that my MISTI would help me out since it is a larger image. I'm first stamping the floral image twice onto this strip of watercolor paper. The reason why I'm stamping on this paper is because it's really great for ink blending. I die cut this circle from some more watercolor paper. The paper I chose to use is Canson XL. I'm just going to ink up the center of that flower and stamp it down. For this piece of watercolor paper, I die cut it from the coordinating die, and to ink up this, I'm going to lay it on top of the stamp, and then I'm going to close my MISTI onto the screen, and then I flipped it back around and I'm going to apply pressure. I did have to ink up that one a few times in order to get a good impression. After everything was stamped, I added clear embossing powder over each of these panels, and then I'll just heat set them with my heat tool. By the way, to ink up these flowers, I used VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and this ink dries really slow, so you can add embossing powder onto it. And I really like that the embossing powder raises the image and makes it shiny. So I'm actually not going to color these flowers in. I wasn't really in a coloring mood, but I did want to do some ink blending. So for this die cut floral piece, I'm going to start ink blending Lucky Clover at the bottom, Broken China in the center, and Twisted Citron at the top. I'm using a combination of Picket Fence Studio blender brushes and Trinity Stamp blender brushes to do all my inking for today's video. And because I'm using that Canson XL watercolor paper, this is just really easy to blend. I think I ink blended all 3 of my panels in about 10 minutes. So here's that first one. I'm now going to ink blend onto the strip. I'm going to first ink the bottom with Picked Raspberry Distress Oxide. In the center, I'm going to go over it with Wild Honey, and I didn't have a yellow Distress Oxide, so I'm going to use my Squeeze Lemonade Distress ink. You can combine the oxides with the regular inks. You can see the oxides are covering more of that clear embossing powder, so it's kind of foggying up the image. I'm going to show you how you can fix that in just a second. I just wanted to finish up my blending first. For this last circle panel, I'm going to ink blend Seedless Preserves at the bottom, Abandoned Coral in the center, and Picked Raspberry at the top. Now, I'm limited on my Distress Oxide inks. I only have 12 colors, which has worked for me for about a year and a half, but I'm considering buying some more because I think it would have been prettier with a light pink at the top. So maybe Tattered Rose would have been a better option, but I am happy with how all 3 of these turned out. So to remove that excess ink that's on top of the embossing powder, I'm just going to take a dry paper towel and remove that ink. And you can see it makes quite the difference. So I'm going to do that to all 3 of these. And I am making sure to use different areas on the paper towel to remove this ink. And there you go, that black ink is now crisp again, and I'm really happy with how all 3 of those blends ended up looking. And I kind of like that I didn't have to color in that image because I have colored it before, and it is beautiful colored, but it takes me close to 45 minutes to color it with Copics. One time I colored it with my color pencils, and that took like an hour and a half. So it definitely takes some time if you want a really pretty colored image. So I wanted to show you other ways you can use your large floral stamps you have in your stash. I'm now going to take the 3rd layer in the Trinity Stamps Space Swirl stencil set. You can actually layer these stencils to create an awesome space background, but I like the 3rd layer because it has some different size circles and stars. You can see I'm ink blending through. I'm trying to avoid the stars. I just wanted to have those spots on my card, and I'm ink blending onto some black cardstock. The Distress Oxide inks react really nice with darker cardstock. It's definitely not as bright as it would look on white cardstock. It also looks a little bit more chalky, but it definitely adds a nice subtle texture to your plain backgrounds. So you can see I'm using up the entire stencil. I'm switching it around so I can get some different sized dots onto this panel. After laying this floral on top, I felt like I needed a few more blue spots at the top. So I'm going to bring back my broken china and just add a few more dots. And definitely the lighter the ink that you're using, the brighter it shows up. So you can see the Twisted Citron shows up a lot more than this broken china, but it still looks really cool. I wanted to use the same colors that I used on the flower. So I'm laying my floral on top of this black panel, and now I'm going to work on the sentiment. I chose Love You Bunches, and this sentiment is included in the Love You Bunches stamp set. And I'm going to glue it right on top of that larger flower with my art glitter glue. And then I'll flip this over, add some foam tape behind it, and pop it up. The foam tape that I'm using is Scotch 3M and my U-line foam tape, which is really cheap, and I use it on a lot of my cards, but I typically only use it for larger images. It's really hard to cut that tape down. It will actually ruin your scissors, so that's why I'm using a combination of the Scotch and the U-line tape. It is the same width. So my sentiment was crooked, so I tore it off and then re-glued it on. And then to embellish this card, I'm going to take some Trinity Stamps Fairy Rocks embellishments, and I'm just going to add a few of those around my flower bouquet as well as onto the card panel. I'll attach them with my art glitter glue, and then that will complete my first card. I'm just going to attach it to a turquoise mat. I thought about just gluing it onto my card base, but I thought it looked a little bit nicer with this turquoise cardstock. So I'll add some ATG tape, attach it to that mat, and that's actually going to cover the entirety of my card base. And that's it. That will complete card 1. This one's probably my favorite out of the 3. I just really like the ink blending combination I used for this one. For my second card, I'm going to start by inking up my sentiment. I gold heat embossed the sentiment for you onto some black cardstock. You can see I already die cut the word. And if you buy the coordinating dies for most of the Trinity Stamps stamp sets, they will also include the dies to cut out the sentiments. I also, from the Crafty Post stamp and die set, I die cut this hello from gold cardstock, and then I die cut the outer layer, what is that called? The shadow, from black cardstock. So this panel is going to say hello for you. I'm going to glue it onto the center of this ink blended circle. You can see I added a gold circle behind it to tie in the gold in the embossing powder and on the hello word die. And just like I did with the last card, I'm going to take this Space Swirl stencil and ink blend through it using the same Distress Oxide inks that I used on the circle piece. And I am going to twist and turn this stencil so I get multiple spots onto this black cardstock. So each card has different colors, but they were all created the same, at least the black background panel. This was actually the first time I ever ink blended on dark cardstock before, and I do think the effect looks really cool. I like that it's subtle so that the focus is still on that beautiful floral image, but it does add a really nice texture to the background. And I'm not using any tape on this stencil because, as you can see, I'm moving it around quite a bit, and I'm trying to avoid those stars because I just wanted those dots. Alright, I'm just going to ink blend a few more of these spots. And then I will start to assemble my card. And whenever I clean off my stencils, I just use a baby wipe. And that tends to work for me. Okay, so I'm pulling back my circle and I'm just laying everything out on the card. I like how that looks, so I'm going to go ahead and start gluing some stuff down. For the Hello word die, I'm going to attach it with some art glitter glue, as well as that For You sentiment, which I will glue right underneath. For the gold circle, I'm going to use ATG tape. And then again, I'm going to embellish this card with those same fairy rocks embellishments. So I really like how all three cards coordinate very well together. I think this would be a really nice gift set of note cards to give to someone. And the sentiments I chose are pretty general, so you can use them for a lot of different occasions. Alright, for this one I wanted to mat it onto some hot pink cardstock. Again, that was cut to the size of a card base, so I'll just attach that onto my 110-pound white Nina card base, and that will complete the second card. Here's a close-up. For my last card, you can see I ink blended that same background using the same stencil on black cardstock. I used picked raspberry at the bottom and wild honey at the top. I'm now going to add some gold strips behind this floral panel, just using my art glitter glue to attach them. And then I will pop this strip across my card panel using my U-line foam tape again. I'm going to add the foam tape onto the black panel just to make sure that it doesn't overhang, because like I said, this tape is not the greatest to use with your scissors. Alright, then I'll just flip this panel over, trim off the excess. And then for the sentiment, I actually used a Simon Says stamp sentiment because it was honestly just laying on my desk, so I decided to glue it down. And then again, I will accent this card with those fairy rocks embellishments. And that's going to complete all three cards that I created. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please consider subscribing. I'm almost at 3,000 subscribers, and I will be having a giveaway associated with that. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!